Natural resources of ancient Languedoc. For tens of thousands of years, the land we now call southern France has sustained human life in remarkable ways. From the painted caves of the Paleolithic to the bustling ceramic workshops of the Roman Empire, the region of ancient Languedoc offered an extraordinary wealth of natural resources, animal, plant, and mineral, that shaped the lives and cultures of every people who called it home. This is the story of that abundance. The earliest known inhabitants of southern France were Paleolithic hunter-gatherers, who left behind vivid evidence of their world in cave paintings and engravings carved into rock. These ancient artists depicted the animals they hunted, the landscapes they roamed, and the rhythms of a life lived entirely in dependence on nature. Their survival depended on a deep knowledge of the land and its seasonal gifts. During the great glacial periods when ice sheets pushed south and temperatures plummeted, the megafauna of the steppe dominated the landscape. Reindeer, bison, aurochs, and wild horses moved in vast herds across the tundra-like plains. Most magnificent of all were the woolly mammoths, whose presence is recorded in cave paintings with remarkable accuracy. Great, shaggy beasts navigating a frozen world alongside early humans who hunted them with coordinated skill and courage. As the climate warmed and the glaciers retreated, the composition of animal life shifted dramatically. The cold-adapted megafauna gave way to species more suited to temperate woodland environments. Deer, wild pigs, and ibex, the agile mountain goat, became the primary quarry of Paleolithic hunters. Alongside these larger animals, smaller species thrived. Beavers built their lodges along rivers, hares darted through undergrowth, and numerous species of birds nested in the forests and wetlands of the region. The plant life of southern France was equally rich, even during colder climatic periods. A diverse array of wild grains, berries, and nuts provided essential calories and nutrients to supplement the meat-heavy diet of hunter-gatherers. Archaeological excavations at prehistoric sites have uncovered remarkable evidence of this botanical abundance, including the charred remains of seeds, pollen records, and plant fibers preserved in ancient sediments. Among the most surprising discoveries at these sites are enormous quantities of snail shells, indicating that the inhabitants of prehistoric southern France had developed a taste for escargots long before the French became famous for the delicacy. Cave paintings also depict fish and seals, confirming that coastal and riverine resources were exploited. Perhaps most evocatively, paintings show Paleolithic people raiding wild bees' nests, scaling cliff faces, and braving stings in pursuit of honey, one of the only concentrated sweet foods available in the ancient world. Altogether, these varied resources provided a more nutritious and diverse diet than was available to people in many other regions of prehistoric Europe. The Neolithic Revolution, the transition from hunting and gathering to farming, transformed human society across the ancient world, and southern France was no exception. With the advent of agriculture came the domestication of animals. Sheep and goats were among the first to be tamed, followed by pigs and cattle. These animals provided not only meat but also milk, hides, wool, and eventually labor. The relationship between humans and domesticated animals deepened over millennia, becoming one of the defining features of settled life. The horse presents a particularly fascinating case in the history of human-animal relations. In the earliest phases of animal domestication in southern France, horses were kept primarily as a source of food. Only gradually, over many centuries, did humans discover the transformative potential of horses as working animals, first for pulling loads and plows, and later as mounts for riders. This shift would eventually revolutionize warfare, trade, and communication across the ancient world. Wild asses are believed to have been introduced into Languedoc somewhat later, during the Roman period, further expanding the region's working animal resources. The dog occupies a unique place in this history. Unlike other domesticated animals, dogs were not primarily kept for food or fiber. Instead, they appear to have entered into a genuinely symbiotic relationship with human communities. Dogs received scraps of prey from the hunters they accompanied, and in return they lent their extraordinary senses of smell and hearing to the hunt, alerting humans to the presence of game, tracking wounded animals, and helping to bring prey to bay. This partnership between humans and dogs may be among the oldest and most enduring alliances in natural history. By the end of the Neolithic period, the agricultural repertoire of southern France had expanded dramatically. Farmers cultivated a wide variety of plant species. Wild peas, lentils, and chickpeas provided protein. Early forms of barley and wheat formed the staple grain crops. Beans, oats, and millet added variety, and more unusual crops such as opium poppies and flax were grown for their valuable secondary products, respectively a powerful medicinal and sedative resin and fibers used to make linen textiles. The arrival of Greek traders in Languedoc during the 6th century BC brought a new wave of agricultural innovation. The Greeks introduced cultivated grapevines, transforming southern France into one of the great wine-producing regions of the ancient world, as well as olive trees, peaches, and figs. These Mediterranean crops thrived in the warm, dry climate of the region and became deeply embedded in its agricultural identity. The Romans subsequently expanded this botanical inheritance further, introducing walnuts, chestnuts, melons, almonds, and apples. By the height of the Roman period, the orchards and vineyards of southern France were producing food for export across the empire. Beneath the fertile soils of southern France lay another kind of wealth: minerals. The region's favorable geology, shaped by the ancient mountain-building events that created the Massif Central and the Pyrenees, made it one of the most richly mineralized areas in Western Europe, capable of supporting industrial-scale extraction even in remote antiquity. The exploitation of these resources would, over time, draw traders, conquerors, and settlers from across the Mediterranean world. Among the earliest minerals exploited were copper ores, found in the southern portions of the Massif Central and in the Hérault department, particularly in the Corbières area. Copper mining in this region began as early as the mid-3rd millennium BC, a time when much of Europe was still entirely in the Stone Age. By the end of that millennium, copper production had spread across the wider western region, creating networks of trade and exchange that linked southern France to distant communities. The Massif Central was also a significant center of gold production in antiquity, primarily through the technique of placer mining, the washing of river gravels and sands to extract particles and nuggets of alluvial gold. Unlike the situation in Spain, where archaeologists have found evidence of extensive underground gold mining with deep shafts and galleries, gold extraction in Languedoc appears to have remained largely a surface operation. The yields, however, were sufficient to support the production of fine gold work and to contribute to regional wealth. Although Languedoc itself lacks significant local tin deposits, an essential ingredient in the production of bronze, this gap was bridged through long-distance trade. Tin was transported to southern France along the Garonne River, which served as a natural highway connecting the Atlantic coast to the Mediterranean interior. The tin came from Cornwall in southwestern England and from Brittany in northwestern France, two of the richest tin-producing regions in ancient Europe. This trade route, stretching hundreds of miles, is a remarkable testament to the commercial sophistication of prehistoric and early historic societies. With reliable access to both copper and imported tin, the metalworkers of southern France were able to produce bronze of exceptional quality. The high-quality bronze artifacts manufactured in the region during the Bronze Age were widely distributed throughout Gaul, the broader Celtic world of ancient France, and bear witness to the technical skill of local craftsmen and the reach of ancient trade networks. Swords, axes, vessels, and ornaments made in southern France have been found at sites far beyond the region's borders. The Roman period saw the intensification of mineral extraction across the region. Lead ores were mined by open-cast methods in the Aveyron department, producing not only lead, used for pipes, vessels, weights, and construction, but also substantial quantities of silver, which was recovered as a byproduct of lead smelting through the process of cupellation. Roman mining operations in this area were organized on a considerable scale, reflecting the empire's insatiable appetite for metal. Iron, however, was the most abundant and economically significant mineral resource in ancient Languedoc. Its exploitation began as early as the 7th century BC during the early Iron Age and expanded dramatically during the Roman period. Languedoc ultimately became one of the principal centers of iron production in the entire Roman Empire. The scale of this industry is dramatically illustrated by the enormous slag heaps, the waste products of iron smelting, that survive at sites such as Les Marties. These heaps have been estimated to contain over 1 million tons of waste material, a quantity that speaks to centuries of intensive industrial activity. The iron industry of the Montagne Noire, the Black Mountain Range of the southern Massif Central, reached a particularly impressive scale during the Roman period. Production was organized under direct imperial oversight, with extraction and smelting rights leased to private operators who worked under state supervision. This blending of imperial control and private enterprise was characteristic of Roman industrial organization and allowed the empire to harness the productive capacity of the region while ensuring a steady supply of iron for military and civilian purposes. The arrival of Greek and Roman settlers in southern France brought not only new crops and metals, but also new architectural traditions. Greek and Roman building practice relied heavily on dressed stone, carefully cut and shaped blocks of high-quality rock that could be used to construct temples, public buildings, roads, aqueducts, and private homes. To supply this demand, numerous quarries were opened across the region, exploiting deposits of limestone, sandstone, and other building materials. Many of these quarries are difficult to date precisely, as they remained in use for many centuries after their initial opening. However, quarries at Glanum, near the modern town of Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, and at La Couronne near Marseille, have been securely attributed to the Roman period. The region's abundant deposits of high-quality clay supported ceramic production from the Neolithic period onward. Archaeologists have identified the remains of ancient kilns at numerous sites, testifying to a tradition of pottery making that stretches back thousands of years. The earliest ceramics were hand-built and relatively simple, used primarily for storing and cooking food. Over time, techniques became more refined, and pottery evolved into both a practical necessity and a medium for artistic expression. The Roman period brought a transformation in the scale and character of ceramic production in southern France. A distinctive type of fine pottery, originally developed in the 1st century BC in Arezzo in central Italy, proved exceptionally well suited to the clays of southern France. This pottery, known as terra sigillata, meaning stamped pottery, was produced using fired clay molds impressed with decorative stamps, creating vessels with elaborate relief designs. Figures of gods and heroes, hunting scenes, floral motifs, and geometric patterns. The result was a high-quality, standardized product that was visually striking and instantly recognizable. Terra sigillata became one of the great commercial successes of the Roman world, traded widely across the western provinces of the empire. Demand was driven in part by the growth of oil and wine production, which required large quantities of ceramic containers, amphorae, for storage and transport. Major production centers emerged at Salles-d'Aude, near Narbonne, and at La Gros-Fessenc, near Millau in the Aveyron. These sites featured fully integrated production systems encompassing every stage of the process: clay extraction by both open cast and underground methods, preparation and shaping of vessels, decoration using molds and stamps, and firing in large, sophisticated kilns. The range of goods produced was enormous, from fine tableware to large storage vessels. The story of ancient Languedoc is ultimately the story of a land of extraordinary natural generosity, a region where the interplay of climate, geology, and geography created conditions that sustained and enriched human communities across thousands of years of history. From the first cave painters who recorded the animals of the Ice Age to the Roman potters who supplied the empire with their beautiful stamped ware, the people of southern France were sustained by and gave shape to one of the richest natural environments in the ancient world. That legacy endures in the landscapes, the wines, the stones, and the soil of the region to this day.